So the Eagles did lose to the Ravens this weekend. Very tough loss. We're going to talk about that. 30-28 behind what I think most fans can call Carson's best game of the year. That is the bright spot. The downside is they did fall to 1-4-1. So guys, we'll go around the panel. Caleb, I'll start with you. Give me a gauge on how fans should feel about this game. Is there reason to be optimistic because they battled back so hard with a banged up team, or is this just another disappointing game from a disappointing team so far?
Yeah, I think Eagles fans after this game should definitely be optimistic about this football team. I mean, you had Carson Wentz, who definitely performed the best game that he's had all this year against probably a top 5 team in the NFL. Especially with all the injuries they have, it's insane. I mean, you have Zach Ertz now, that's out, Miles Sanders. And then also you had Travis Fulgham, to me, who solidified that he's going to be a big big piece in this Eagles organization for years to come forward now. So, I mean, it sucks to lose, but definitely a good building block for the future.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think for the second week in a row, I think the Eagles have a lot of takeaways that come from outside of their game. So last week, it was obviously the horrific news that happened to Dak Prescott. This week, it's in twofold, where one is showing that Andy Dalton may not be as great of a backup quarterback as we once saw. We'll see if he could get more situated with them since they didn't have a preseason. But at the same time, it's also that the Washington football team got beat by the Giants. So I think it's huge that 2 games around the Eagles were the biggest factor. But I think that this game, personally, there was a lot of good stuff to come from it. I mean, obviously, Carson Wentz playing with a second and third string running back, a fourth and fifth string wide receiver, a third string tight end, a third string left tackle, a second string left guard, a fifth string right guard, and a third string right tackle. It's only Wentz and Kelsey out there, and they made it a 2-point game. I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that was a tale of 2 halves. First half was some of the most abysmal football the Eagles have played yet this season, and that's saying something. I mean, the second half, especially the fourth quarter, we saw potential that we saw with the Eagles years ago. It was kind of like a little nice reminiscing time. They still couldn't pull it off. Doug's play calling is still absolutely probably the worst part of this offense, especially that 2-point conversion in the end. You can blame some of that on Boston Scott, but still, I don't think the read option there was the right move. It was definitely a winnable game, and that should make us a little more cautiously optimistic for the future. For all we know, we can just go in the next week and then completely tank. But for now, we have a little something to celebrate.
Yeah, at the time, I wasn't really paying attention to the game. I watched it back later on. But, watching it, I didn't really – there wasn't anything that stuck out to me that was like, oh, this is a problem. Like, this was the reason why they lost. Like,
I mean, I think there were no – go ahead.
No. You go ahead. Go ahead. You're the analyst.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, we always talk about the offense here, and I think that pretty justified why. But at the same time, I think the defense was, especially in the second half, like Sam alluded to, was phenomenal. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens went over 20 minutes without a first down, going from the end of the first quarter to the third quarter. They were phenomenal. I mean, Jerry had 9 tackles, 7 of them were solo. Like, Graham had 2 sacks on the day. Jackson had 2.5 tackles for losses. So I think there was a really good defensive scheme going into it. I know it doesn't really sound good in a 30-point game that they've allowed, but still holding this team to 186 total rushing yards with 109 of them coming from Lamar, I think was a really good sign for the Eagles.
So it sounds like consensus is more on Doug than it is on Schwartz or anything else. If I'm hearing, the panel correctly. Go ahead, Sam. I'm sorry I cut you off.
No worries. You're good. It's not relevant anymore.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thank
so
you.
I did want to talk about Doug. Ask about Doug. Do you think Doug is losing a little bit of trust in Jake Elliott when he's not going for just an extra point on after that first touchdown? And is there reason to be concerned about him after missing another field goal?
No, I just would pin that more on Doug just not being able to call plays and thinking he has something to prove going for 2 points on the first touchdown of the game. I mean, yeah, Elliott's been a little shaky. He's missed some field goals, but he would not have missed that extra point. I mean, there is no reason for Doug calling plays like he should. He should not have that privilege anymore.
It's not the first time he's done it either. In that San Francisco game, they scored the opening touchdown, and then they Was it the opening touchdown? I'm not sure. I think it
Yeah,
was.
it was.
And then he went for 2 to make it 8-0. And it was kind of just like, well, what was that about? I don't really put anything past him.
Yeah, and it sounded like after the game, Doug kind of walked back on the decision. At least the last play, the last two-point conversion, which I don't know what was going on there, but he kind of walked it back. I mean, are we concerned about Doug going forward? Not even this season, but into next season. Do we think that? Go ahead.
I think that not kicking the extra point was an Elliott issue. I think it's more they're trying to get into the analytics of it because they used a 2-point conversion 3 or 4 times or a short field play because they also go for it on 4th down. At the end of the day, you just run out of plays that you could run from that personnel. I mean, Sam says it wouldn't have worked, I think, but necessarily, I think if Boston Scott doesn't get in the way, Wentz has a one-on-one that he could possibly win. But at the end of the day, that's just not a good play call. I think it's just because they're running out of plays. They've shown everything they've already had. You can't rerun a play because you don't have the offensive weapons that way.
Yeah, I don't think it's time yet for Eagles fans to start worrying about Doug Peterson. I mean, obviously his play calling for the first 6 games of this season has not been up to our standards, but I mean, you got to look at all the injuries they've had. I mean, he's probably overthinking things, trying to make things easier for other players when, and realistically, he just needs to simplify everything. I think he even said that in his past press conference for the upcoming Giants game. He said he just needs to simplify stuff, and that's what they need to do when they have this amount of injuries and the players they have out on the field. They just got to make everything simple. So hopefully do they do that for Thursday?
I will say this about Doug is he's lucky he won a Super Bowl because if they didn't win that Super Bowl, I don't know if he's still the coach of the team. He as the city is notoriously known for giving leniency to players and coaches that won titles. You can see with the Phillies keeping Ryan Howard and Chase Utley until they were 65 and broken down. But with Doug, he's dealt with injuries pretty much his entire time in Philadelphia, and we've seen they can win with second string, third string players. And I get it. You went up against a good team in the Ravens. But as I mentioned, I think this Thursday is going to be a huge testament is whether he's doing it right by winning the game or something is seriously wrong if they lose.
And we'll talk about Thursday. But I want to walk it back. We saw Jalen Hurts a lot more in this game. I think he really gave kind of a boost to the offense. It was kind of stagnant until then. Is this the way that you think Doug and Howie envisioned Jalen Hurts being used when they drafted him with that 2nd round pick, or do you think that there's still more to come from him?
I hope so.
Go ahead.
No, after you.
Oh, thank you. I think that when they looked at the 2nd round and they drafted the quarterback, they're looking for their Taysom Hill, like with New Orleans. And that's all they really want him to be for the start. I mean, I think they could see him staying in-house, get a couple of years out of him because you have him for 4 years now, and see if Wentz doesn't work out, he's still a legitimate 2nd-string quarterback where I don't think Taysom Hill would be because he got replaced by Teddy Bridgewater last year and overstepped. But I think at the end of the day, they wanted an X factor. Doug Peterson wanted a cool toy to play with. And I think that's all Hurts is going to be. But, I mean, it was pretty big for him to get the first down of the game.
So do you like the pick?
No, absolutely not. I think that's the reason why. But I think there was a lot of different things to address before that.
Definitely not in that spot, not in the 2nd round for a gadget player. Absolutely.
Yeah, with the amount of needs the Eagles have right now that we've seen, especially at wide receiver, even at running back. I mean, now that Miles Sanders is hurt, we have Boston Scott and Corey Clement leading the backfield. So there's definitely different areas that the Eagles should have went with that pick. But, I mean, I don't mind. I like Jalen Hurts personally, but definitely not in the 2nd round.
I'm not a Jalen Hurts fan. I never really was. Nice guy, whatever. Just never a fan of him as a quarterback. I feel like their 2nd best quarterback is honestly Greg Ward. Houston Cougar legend, was a stud there. I would roll with Greg Ward. Yeah, I think they could use Greg Ward, and I'm surprised they have not done one of those reverse passes where Greg Ward catches a screen and he just launches it deep to I don't even know, Fulgham, I guess. I don't know if they have anymore. But I'm just a little surprised with that. But definitely not a fan of the pick. But it's interesting to see his utilization.
Especially when you just talk about the running backs and you think about some of the names just off the top of my head. DeAndre Swift was still on the board. Jonathan Taylor was still on the board. And they could have had these guys who 2 of them are becoming bell cow running backs, Who knows? I mean, obviously, that would have been bad look for Miles Sanders just picked a couple of years ago to go with 2 offensive picks with Rager going in the first round. But I mean, you just look at needs, and Jalen Hurts wasn't a need.
They could have picked Willie Gay from Mississippi State. He's doing pretty well in Kansas City. I mean, that addressed the linebacker need. Instead, you draft a developmental guy who's probably not going to see the field this year.
Yeah, and there's certainly, something to be said for how bad a pick was, especially if Carson continues to play the way that he played on Sunday. Do you guys see him building off of this success and riding into the season and possibly making a playoff run?
Well, I mean,
yeah, Sam.
Regardless of his success, I think the Eagles are going to be making a playoff run no matter what when you look at this division. I don't think he's going to play at this level for the rest of the season. I think last week was a little flame under his butt that he needed, but I don't see that momentum from that second half of last week carrying through the whole season. Yeah, I think we're going to win the game against the Giants, but I don't think he's going to correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Wentz throw for 300-something yards last week? I just don't see that happening again.
I think his momentum will carry over into the Giants game. I don't think they'll make a playoff run. I think they'll make a playoff limp. They're probably going to make the playoffs at a 5-10-1 record and get shunned upon in the entire NFL and probably lose to probably the Bears or something. But I don't know. I mean, listen, if Wentz plays the way he did in the second half of the Pittsburgh game, in the second half of the Baltimore game, who's to say he can't do it for a full game against the Giants? I mean, Baltimore and Pittsburgh's defenses are way better than the Giants' defense. I think you can see a big game out of Wentz this week.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Wentz's play this past Sunday, he's definitely the franchise player that they expected him to be. I mean, I expect him to carry up into this Sunday against the Giants or this Thursday against the Giants. I mean, Giants have one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Even with all the guys out, I do expect him to put up decent numbers, but definitely positive play for Wentz lately.
I hope. I mean, you guys are lighting a flame under my Giants fandom butt here. I mean, terrible defense. They're the 20th best defense in football, all right? That's top.
Wow.
Thirds. Second in points, 10th in red zone percentage, and 12th in turnovers. So, I mean, they got some guys, and I think the only problem that the Eagles are going to have, because obviously the Eagles are going to win this, and it's going to be a trap game because it's going to get the fandom kind of riled up again for a better push until they get to good teams. But the only problem that Wentz is going to have, which has been his problem all season, he got sacked 6 times for 43 yards this game. And the Giants have guys that can get after the quarterback. I mean, Blake Martinez, Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence all have multiple sacks on the season already. And that's all of the 9 guys that they have that have already recorded at least half a sack so far. So, I mean, don't sleep on the Giants defense too much, but it's going to be a trap game. Wentz is going to have a good game.
Daniel Jones is going to give him good field position, I think. Fumbling the ball a lot or throwing picks. Turning it over somehow, some way. He's going to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about this division and this game moving forward. When you step back, really, this game doesn't actually mean that much, at least not on the surface, because this division is god awful, and they're still in prime position to take this division. Especially, we saw how bad Dallas played with Andy Dalton, and we saw the Giants now their first win against Washington. Can the Eagles really make the playoffs at, say, a 6-9-1 record?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Because everyone else is going to be worse. I mean, someone has to make it, And listen, I think Tyler's going to like this. Sneaky dark horse contender. Giants might win. Just want to say Giants, there's a chance. I think the Giants could win the division. I think they just got to put it together, and I don't know if they will. But I think it's the Eagles division to lose. I am a little hesitant of their first place schedule, though, and seeing how but all they really have to do is just win the divisional games. The rest of the games really don't matter. Just beat football team again, or not again because they lost them. Beat the Cowboys twice and beat the Giants twice. And I don't think that's a tall task to do.
Yeah, like you said, John, this division's horrendous. I mean, they're probably going to make the playoffs with 6 or 7 wins. 7 wins probably at best. I mean, the wins are probably going to come from the Redskins, the Giants, and the Cowboys, just like Austin said. I mean, all the other games they have against like the Seahawks, I think they play the Vikings. Yeah, they're all going to be losses probably. So
Packers,
don't expect the Eagles to get a lot of wins heading into the playoffs. I mean, it's probably going to be a historically low win percentage for a playoff team to make it. I mean, I don't remember the last time I've seen a 7-9 or 8-8 team really make the playoffs.
7-8-1, 2014 Carolina Panthers, and they won a playoff game.
Were they a top seed?
7-9.
They won the division. They won their division. 7-8-1.
That's crazy.
7-9. The Seahawks won the NFC West, got a home game, and that was the Beastquake game for Marshawn Lynch.
Beat the Saints.
So
God.
I think this is the Eagles' division to lose. The only thing that stands in their way, because on paper and just on the tape as well, injuries or not, the Eagles are the best team now with Dak Prescott falling. I don't think Dalton's going to have enough to get them to a 6 or 7 win caliber team, where the Eagles, if they don't win 6 to 7 games, if it's 6 or less games, the NFL has to change their rules for the playoffs, because that's unacceptable to give them a home game. But the only thing against the Eagles right now is their strength of schedule. Like you guys said, they got to win the Giants game. Then they got Cowboys and they got Giants again. But then it's Browns, Seahawks, Packers, Saints, Cardinals, Cowboys, and Washington again. So there is a rough slate of month games there in the middle of 4 caliber teams that could win their division, and that actually means something.
It wouldn't shock me if they win a game that they're not supposed to win and lose a game they're supposed to win. That just seems
pencil in that Seahawks game. They personnel wise, they work out, and that should be when they have a lot of players back. But for all we know, they're probably going to have every player that they get back, another player is going to get hurt for.
Right. Revolving door. That playoff game was close too with McCown last year. That was like 7-9.
Yeah,
pretty close game.
All right, listen, we'll wrap up Eagles talk here. I got to move into Fast Five, but just one last question. I saw Jamon Brown. I don't know where Jamon Brown came from. I don't know who he is. The man sacked Carson Wentz on one play. I've never seen a sack from your own team sacking a player.
Butt fumble.
Oh, butt fumble. You're right. Butt fumble was Mark Sanchez
running into.
Yeah, that was more. Yeah, that was inflicted by Mark Sanchez. Yeah.
Yeah, that was his Eagles legend, by the way.
I saw Mark Sanchez. He was on The Masked Singer on a commercial.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know how they got Mark Sanchez, but they did.
They had Barry Zito on there. It was so random.
I don't watch that show. I hate that show. I shouldn't talk. Never mind.
Free ads.
What?
You just gave him a free advertisement.
No, I shouldn't do that. Yeah, you're right. This is LaSalle TV. No Masked Singer here. Yeah, and Jamon Brown needs to go. Okay, Fast Five. We'll move in. I need my baseball guys here. Austin, Tyler, World Series playing right now. I just saw Bellinger hit a bomb. I'm hoping you guys take different teams in this one. Who do you got winning this series, and by how much?
Going into the playoffs, I said it earlier, I had the Rays winning it just because I'll say here and I'll say it again. The Tampa Bay Rays, how they play baseball is how every team is going to play baseball in 2025. They just, the way they do righty-lefty shifts, the way that they analyze their pitching and completely go through analytics is just such a beautiful thing to watch. The only thing standing in their way is this Dodgers team. It's finally their time. I think they're going to win it in a lengthy 6 or 7 games, but they got to Glasnow tonight, which is huge for them because Glasnow hasn't looked as good as he's supposed to in this postseason. Blake Snell's seen more production, but as good as the Rays can righty-lefty it up, the Dodgers can just as well, and they have much bigger names. I mean, Randy Arozarena has been a phenomenal talent, but he doesn't stack up compared to Mookie Betts. I mean, same thing with Manuel Margot in center field. He doesn't stack up to Kiermaier, so I think the Dodgers have it.
Randy Arozarena, I mean, listen, as a Cardinals fan, it pains me to see him doing that. Literally had him last year. Matt Libator better be Randy frickin' Johnson, the way Arozarena's playing. But I got Dodgers in 5. I just think they're the total package, the starting pitching, the hitting, the fielding, the speed. I mean, they got it all. And the way Mookie Betts has been playing in the field, I mean, oh my goodness, he had his own highlight tape off of one series. I think the Rays will make it competitive, aside from maybe this game 1 where it's 7-1. Yeah. I think they're going to make it competitive game after game, but I think it's going to be Dodgers in 5, and the Rays are certainly going to be a mainstay in the AL playoffs for years to come, and they'll definitely be challenging the Yankees for some AL East titles.
2 LA championships in one year.
Crazy. Could have had 2 Tampa ones.
It would have been 2 Tampa. Yeah, exactly.
I'd rather have Tampa than LA, but there's no city
that leads it for Tom Brady to have to win the next one,
That's true.
I'd rather the Rams win.
All right, next question. Who wants it? I'll toss it up. The Jets lost 24-0 to the Dolphins on Sunday. Is Adam Gase the worst coach that we've seen in 10 years, 20 years, 10 years? Let's go with 10 years.
You know why? Because all the players that have played for Gase, once they leave Gase, they become superstars. Like Ryan Tannehill, Devontae Parker, Le'Veon Bell is probably going to be a stud. I mean, he already was a stud. Then he went to Gase. Gase ruined him. Now he's going to go to the best offense in the NFL. He's going to be a stud again. I think Gase is just – they got to get him out of there before Trevor Lawrence comes to town.
Yeah, I feel like Chip Kelly is almost at par with him, but Adam Gase is definitely got to be one of the worst coaches we've seen in a while. I mean, you have star players that, for me, are good team captains, and they're coming out and saying that the organization's poorly ran mostly because of him. So, I mean, looking at a general manager standpoint with Joe Douglas, I liked him on the Eagles. I'm surprised he hasn't fired him yet. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Adam Gase is fired in the next couple of weeks for the Jets.
Because he wants Trevor. He sees it. He has his third eye open. He wants them to lose out. Get Trevor.
Yeah, watch him pull Eli Manning. He's going to stay another year.
Yeah.
Wasting Sam Darnold's career over there.
Mm-hmm.
Poor guy. Poor Trevor.
Juju Smith-Schuster said he wanted, what's his name, Sam Darnold. So maybe
USC brothers.
I wouldn't be shocked to see that.
Yeah.
All right, next question. This is a pretty open-ended one. Not a whole lot going on besides the World Series right now, so I couldn't really think anything. So I'll toss it up. The best sport in this pandemic that we are in right now. COVID cases are on the rise. What is the one sport that would calm your nerves, settle the tension? Anybody go?
I mean, NHL was one of the first ones to come back, NHL and NBA. And the NHL definitely had the most successful bubble of any team, so it was nice not seeing any games get shut down, players getting sick, things getting ruined, games getting canceled, fantasy games being destroyed because you're missing players. The Flyers, they ended up losing in the playoffs, but every single NHL series was just fun to watch because that was the first playoffs we had in a long time, and it was just fun.
Yeah, you're right. NHL doesn't get enough love for having 0 cases. Everyone gave all the love to the bubble, but NHL was just as strong, and they had good storylines going into it where the Stars were a team that kind of sold out. They got rid of Ben Bishop. They got rid of Jamie Siggian. Like guys like mainstays, they kind of got shipped out. They made it to the Cup even though they weren't supposed to. And the other side, Tampa Bay Lightning were the first team in NHL history to have the best record in the regular season and get swept in the first round. And then next year they come around. It's almost like a Virginia 16-1 upset that they just came back from. I agree with you, Sam. NHL.
Yeah, that, and I don't know if anyone watched the ACL, the American Cornhole League, when there was no other sports on. That was just a joy to watch. They had social distance going on.
They did very well.
Shout out to the flop shot.
I'm more of an airmail kind of guy, but
I thought golf was good this year. I'm a big golf guy. I thought golf was good this year. Of course, the Masters are coming up. It's going to be a little weird in November, but back-to-back Masters is something I will never, ever complain about because you get them in November and then you get them in April.
All right. So I had one more question. This question just says 5 wins combined in the NFC East, and then it just says worst division. I don't know what the question was. I don't know what I was thinking there. So I guess I'll have to wild card this one. Best cheesesteak in Philly. Hit me with it.
D'Alessandro's, without a doubt. It's close to LaSalle. Can't beat it. Quality meat, quality cheese. Max's on Broad Street is another good one. You can't beat that. That's the best steak I've ever had on a cheesesteak. Those are 2 top contenders right there.
Max's?
Max is, I 100% agree with Sam. Like, D'Alessandro's is a better sandwich, but Max's steak is out of this world. I would have it with just the steak itself.
Wow, stronger. I've never heard of Max's.
You've seen Creed before?
Creed?
Yeah, like the newer Rocky movie with Michael B. Jordan, and they go and get cheesesteaks. That's Max's.
Oh, okay. I'll have to
Coach Ashley Howard's favorite place. Fun fact.
Ooh. The only sport left at LaSalle. Okay. If we have any, we still have some time, I think. So anybody want to throw in some comments?
I have a question for those that watch college football. Best team in college football this year? Is it Alabama? Is it Clemson? Is it maybe Ohio State?
I do not watch college football. I cannot answer.
I don't watch much, but what I've watched is definitely Clemson. I mean, you look at Trevor Lawrence, he's a generational talent. I mean, we haven't seen Joe Burrow last year, but for me, Trevor Lawrence, just the consistency. This is his third year now, and he's got like one loss in his past 3 years. I mean, just shows how legit he is. So Clemson's pretty impressive for me.
I think no one takes it above Alabama. I mean, nobody gave any love to Mac Jones taking over at quarterback there, and just the overall atmosphere of it. And I think above all else, I think the thing that's going to help out Alabama this much is because they're one of the few conferences that stayed true throughout. I mean, the Big Ten you really can't consider because they had a month of layoffs. You don't know how that's going to affect the team. We haven't even seen most of them play. You look at the Big 12. I mean, offensively they're there, but defensively they're never there. And the SEC around them, you haven't really seen anyone. LSU's completely fallen off because everyone was drafted. Auburn was supposed to be that resurgent second team, and Bo Nix is just an absolute bust. I can't believe how terrible he's been. And the SEC's got a lot going around it, but Alabama's going to be the strongest one coming out of it.
They took it to town on Georgia on Saturday. I was a little surprised.
Yeah, they did.
Georgia's defense very good. Alabama made a mockery out of it.
Yep.
All right. Well, that just about does it for this week for Sports Talk Philadelphia. I had a bonus question. Best 6 is what we had today. Fire. Absolute fire show. Mookie Betts, I believe, stole a base. Tell me if I'm wrong. Steal a taco. Get your tacos. Watch the World Series. We are going to send it off Hasta La Vista style. All right. Check out the social medias. Thank you for watching. See you next week.